it has been interesting right now watching, I just moved to the UK 10 years ago, but I've noticed that the way the UK tells stories is shifting, because now it's becoming more open, and it's kind of allowing immigrants, allowing people that didn't get the chance to, have their voice heard, getting their voice heard now. But at the same time, while this is happening, there's also like pushback as well. And I just, as someone who's involved in the arts and who will be affected by this, how you manage it? How do you handle that? Again, I'm a newbie. I'm like fresh off the fucking boat like 10 years ago, so I'm still like taking it all in.
Well, like, what was an interesting chat the other day. My mum and my aunt were talking about it. They were talking about a TV show came out, and one of the lead South Asians, and you see more South Asians getting exposure now. My auntie was like, "Oh yeah, you tend to see more now these days." And she was like, and she looked at me because I'm the youngest. I was the youngest in my family. Now I've got 2 little cousins and 2 nephews.
So they're coming for your spot?
Yeah, they're taking my little cute little sibling spot away. But
you don't get all the attention.
Yeah, I know. I used to get fed a lot, and now they kick me out of the fucking house. What would they say? But my aunt turned around to me and said, "But when Jatinder was little, there was none. There was nothing like that." And I thought that was really interesting, because there is a shift. There is a visible shift now.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm just like, how not generous, but how genuine it is, because it's all well being seeing that on camera, but what do the writers' rooms look like? What are the stage and camera crew people? What do they look like? We're talking about lighting a lot. I had an interesting conversation with people of colour and our backgrounds, and talking about how sometimes we can be lit, and you're like, why do we look so whitewashed? And it's happened quite a few times, because like you see sometimes you go, and you're like, that's not my skin tone. Like, that's completely. I look ashy. Why do I look ashy?
Again, because they don't have necessarily the experience. Or the knowledge.
Like some people, like, what was it? An interesting video I see, but they were talking about, I think, moonlight, and the poster on that, it's like a purple, turquoise, and something else. But they were saying for darker skin tones, those are the perfect colours, to highlight on stage if you want to do something like that. Especially like for me, I realised if you put a very cold light on me, I look really whitewashed. But if you put like a warm colour, like a warm light on me, I look like normal.
Yeah, like you look like who you look like in real life.
So it's interesting to see stuff like that. For me as an actor, it's I see more opportunities, but like, for example, and this is not me moaning, but it's just the reality. I don't get as much self tapes or auditions as people who are white in this country, and it's true. It might seem mad for me saying it as well, because when I speak to people are like, "Oh, Jatinder works all the time." I don't work all the time. It does look like I appear to work all the time, which I thank God I do work as much as I do, but I don't get 5 or 10 self-tapes within a week. I know in reality it's like that for a lot of people, but for people, I guess now in my position, who do work, like, compared to people like I've been in cast with, like someone's like, "Oh, I've just done my 3rd or 4th self-tape this week." I'm lucky to get maybe 2 or 3 a month.
I mean, it's interesting, again, in my perspective being, see, my people, the Eastern Europeans, or if you want to be specific, Romanians, we've only been in the UK for like, Romanians 10 years, Poles, 2008, like 20 years tops, when there was a massive shift in like the consciousness of like, the Eastern Europeans are coming, you know? And it's been interesting just seeing how the culture's trying to deal with that, because like in the beginning there's nothing, then you get all the gangsters and the criminals and all that, and now I started getting auditions where it was like, instead of Eastern European criminal, it's Eastern European police officer. So they're starting to get us in for those roles. You're like, okay, right. So we're not just the bad guys now, but we're still somehow around crime.
Yeah.
But it's it's growing. But
Well,
then
this is the same as well, and like for us as well.
yeah,
like,
so I'm just like
police
looking
officers.
forward when they figure out that
Yeah.
most of the hospitality sector is East European. I'm not going to say most, but you're going to find an East European in some restaurant
Yeah.
somewhere. And I was just like, it's curious sometimes. Like you'll watch a show and you're like, this is a series about, let's say, the hospitality sector. Not a single Eastern European showed up in it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Funny.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it doesn't mean it have to
That's
be
what
in
I'm talking
it,
about. What does reflect these writers' rooms? I'm not saying they're bad writers, but like, is there a like support system for people like that? Let's say you're in a writing room, like I'm a writer that I don't have any experience with, and I go and approach the company. Like, can you put me in these places so I can speak to people to get a better idea of what does this environment look like, instead of me writing from my own general experience? I'm a supporter for that. That's why I support, like most than anything, for an organisation to like give a writer an ability to do that. Doesn't for me necessarily, I don't need someone who's South Asian to write a story for me. I just need someone who's capable of being open enough to, let's say, go to the Gurdwara one day, speak to a bunch of Sikh people, Punjabi people, and then come back and write a story and get consultation to see, is this accurate enough? That's what I think we should really be striving for more. Yes, obviously have people like us and our backgrounds in these rooms as well that can write it, who are creative enough to write it, but necessarily due to culture, there's not enough. Right now, there's not enough. I'm only a handful of Scottish actors up here. I could probably name like 5, maybe 10 tops off the top of my head that I know that work. Maybe work. But we still don't get as much work as our counterparts who aren't South Asian and such.
And it's all, again, it's a weird one now, because there's a big emphasis now on authenticity. Sometimes people are even afraid of, like, if they even dare to experiment and they'll fuck it up. Then they get flack for that. And
I tell you now, mate. Like, if I was approached by a big, let's say, film production company to write, do you think you write a script about really authentic South Asian story? I could be like, about like, well, no, probably not, because I don't necessarily have the experience of writing compared to someone else. I could probably come in and consult and help you and write some dialogue and do stuff like that. But to helm that, I'm not in a position for that yet. But start me off small, and then let's see where I am in a year, and then I could probably do that for you. That's where I guess I think we need to strive more for this industry, for us to grow and be better as well.
I mean, I'm also like, I'm very aware, again, like, I'm speaking from my perspective of like the timeline, like looking back, what I mean, like 20 years is a short amount of time in culture for like my people to start showing up, sort of authentically.
Well,
I mean, because there were Sikhs in World War One, and we're still arguing about whether or not they should be in a fucking film about World War One.
Did you see that about, what was that? Pratt, what's his name? Lawrence Fox complaining about a Sikh soldier in, what was it, 1917?
Probably,
it was just a background artist as well, and he was fucking moaning about that. And I was like, you live in London, mate. I literally went to a restaurant in Covent Garden, right? A Punjabi Indian restaurant. I walk in. As soon as I sit down, and to my right, there's literally a wall full of articles of Sikh soldiers all over it, fighting in World War 1 and 2. I was like, man, you live in a hot pot of culture in London, and you're fucking complaining about that? You're not, you're not trying to be outrageous. You're just fucking dumb. You're a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? Come on.